Good morning. It is Friday, January 19th. This is Option Pit Live. I am Mark Sebastian. I am here with the Queen of the Candles, Leisha Leslie. Good morning, Leisha.
Good morning. How are you today?
Doing all right. Happy Friday.
Take care, yeah.
I'm excited. Been a really interesting week. As we speak this morning, S&P 500 futures are up about $25. Pretty good move. Would open up the S&P at an all-time high. NASDAQ also looking strong. Markets up across the board. Just about. So in today's story, we're going to be hitting on crypto. We're going to be talking charts with Alicia. We're going to have a discussion around VIX, around bonds, and around all the other major headlines that have hit us this week. We'll talk about a couple trades we like. Andrew will give us a ride in his trading vehicle, and then we'll hit on some order flow if we have time, and go, and then bid you adieu. So with that,
Andrew's a vehicle, gas or electric?
as long as it's not a white panel van, I don't care.
A van down by the river?
Yeah, as long as it's not, as long as Andrew's trading vehicle isn't him with like a bunch of candy trying to grab kids. I think we're safe with whatever vehicle he shows up in. So Leisha, let's start with the charts, because the S&P futures,
Sure.
the S&P, the Qs, they start off soft this week, but they are having themselves a run. What are you seeing in the futures?
Here's my E-mini, S&P 500 E-mini futures. Flirting around with the median line here. It held above here where it was support, traded below, popped up, now it's support again. Just flirting around with it, testing it. Today we're making a definitive, we're trading higher. Now we're testing those previous highs. As long as if we trade above here, I think we're on for new highs.
Yeah,
the resistance will be these previous highs, and it doesn't seem to be stopping it right now.
We're certainly going to open that way for sure. That whether we hold will be interesting, but futures are currently we're currently at 48.37.5. So we are above all-time highs when we open at these levels.
I have resistance. Right? I have them going as high as 49.17.
Wow. All right. Well, there you have it. So if we get on a run, 49.17 is our target. And we'd be remiss to talk about the S&P if we didn't talk about bonds, because bonds are invariably driving, the stock market, and they had a really rough top of the week, but maybe
let me show you
a little bit of it. Yeah, show me, please.
Yeah. Here's the 10-year note, barely hanging on there. Barely hanging on to that lowest support level. We'll be curious to see. Looks like it's trying to doji out here and ready to bounce. I also have, it seems to me if we trade higher and the bonds do not, because the bond charts aren't looking bullish yet. They kind of hit some support here. Right there, right here, there's a support level here. But if they manage to hold that support, then it provides, more bullishness into the stock market. But if they don't, then maybe we're just separating from bonds and we don't care as much. LT not looking so great.
Yeah, that's interesting. Maybe we are seeing correlation break apart, which is a little unusual, but certainly interesting.
Here's TLT flirting with the 50-day on the daily chart. Looks like they're up a little bit right now. Could be just could bounce from here. Hard to say. The chart doesn't look so hot, but I think today will be important if they continue their correlation or not, which they probably will, right? I mean,
you would. I think that we're getting this AI push from the Mag 7 that is
Yeah.
pushing markets higher, but is it sustainable? And we've talked about we are going into expiration this morning. Today is expiration Friday. This January expiration is actually for equities and ETFs, usually the biggest of the year, because these options that are expiring today are actually 3 years old. They originally listed as leaps, so there is just a massive open interest across equities and ETFs in this Jan period, and there's a lot of open interest in SPX as well. So a really interesting, what is going to happen next week coming off of this if the bond market really softens up again, and with that now all those options off the table creates kind of a liquidity profit, a liquidity, uh, it really reduces liquidity and creates some pockets where maybe we could get a big move either north or south.
Sure.
Typically the week after expiration, we can make some wild moves. And January for equities and ETFs is the biggest one, and it's the 5th biggest for SPX. So it's a big. This is the biggest non-quarterly month every year. So it definitely, and it's the first of the year, so it's one to keep an eye on. All right. So we've hit on a few charts. Let's actually talk. Let's bring in our good friend Andrew, and let's dig in to a few trade talk topics. And
Hey, Andrew.
I left the I did park the white panel van, so we should be good with the vehicle.
Did you hide it down the block?
Yeah. I hit it down the block. Also warning, I have a neighbor that's blasting their hillside. So if I start to rumble and shake, you'll know why.
Oh, wow.
Wait, why?
He's putting in a house down by the water, and he needs to blast the ledge. So
Wow.
it's been a week of blasting. It's been great. It's a ways away, but I can still goes, anyway.
Oh, interesting.
I imagine you need a major permit for that.
You do, and you need a dang big rig to drill a hole in the rock to put the dynamite in it. So anyway,
wow,
you'll know it when everything goes like this.
All right. Well,
that's great. It's great.
Be warned. All right. So I want to start by talking VIX, and it bottomed out a while ago, and even as the market is now hitting new highs, the volatility index is kind of nowhere near kind of a level it hung around and for most of December. It's actually still well above of just about every place it traded in December.
Yep.
But the S&P is reaching for new highs. To me, that's a little bit of a red flag. What do you guys seeing this?
I mean, I think we almost had 30 days where, because I trade this in my weekly profit cycles, right? I depend on the negative correlation to be up to 80%, right?
Yeah.
And I had a month where the correlation was the opposite. It was not. It was like almost dead positive. So we had a 12 VIX and a 4,700 SPX. And by the end of December, or like beginning of January, we had a 14 VIX and a 4,800 SPX.
Yeah.
Which is, so, and we've seen that before, Mark, where traditionally that has been, that has led us into nastiness for SP, for the indexes.
Yes.
And that's anyway. So, I mean, we got to move down to 4,700, but I think part of that bid for vol, like it's weird how it's consistent, but my only thing I could really say is, the shutdown, the government shutdown, there will be a little bit of a bid for vol into that shutdown. And now that the Senate has kicked the can, maybe they expect the House to. It's still a bit of a wild card. And I think the reason why is VIX is not back into the 12 handle. If we saw a 12 handle, everybody would be like, woohoo, we're not quite there yet.
I think that this might be around interest rates, and people are really worried that there's another leg back to 5% coming for the 10-year, right. Or for the 30-year. And that is what I think is giving people some nerves, is that the market got so primed on a March rate cut that really did pull a lot of this.
Right.
But now that a lot of it's up and is in doubt, which it should be, and I think the Fed might come in and quash that at the end of the month.
Right.
If they come in and say
10/31.
there will not be a drop in March,
Right.
markets are not going to like that. And
So,
so it might be a Fed meeting thing. This is going to be a really interesting Fed meeting. Alicia,
well, we
what's your
had the
take?
bond auction. We sold off on the bond auction yesterday, and then we
Yeah.
bounced again, right? They bought it up again afterwards. So the auction wasn't good. Market sold off. So now we have 2 events. If you have, so maybe the Congress thing is less, interest rate thing and Fed definitely more. And we get a third, maybe that's what all the call buyers and VIX were for, but I don't want to,
Maybe.
I don't want to get
Alicia,
ahead of myself, but
what's your take on this?
I think it's confusion, quite honestly. Weren't we railing because we thought, oh, the Fed will be cutting in March?
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
ridiculous, in my opinion, just because you haven't even let the new hikes sink in.
Right.
For them to just back and forth, up and down, just seems crazy in such a short amount of time.
Agreed.
So for them to be thinking that we're going to cut in March, I thought was just very premature. And I thought that's what we were railing on. So I think there's kind of some just mass confusion out there.
Yeah.
I think every little news thing is going to move us a lot more than usual.
Yeah. Well, and I was going to ask you about the bond market, but I feel like we already kind of rolled into the bond market. But and Alicia kind of cleared up kind of the bond story. We're at the precipice, right? We're at a spot where we're either going significantly lower or we're going to get for bond prices, rates are going to go potentially significantly lower. Andrew, you got any take on the bond market right now beyond what we just kind of covered?
well, I mean, we were I don't know how we get around like the demand from U.S. government. I mean, they need $500 billion a quarter. Like,
I know.
how is the Fed going to cut into that? At some point, don't people have to say uncle? And if the Fed starts monetizing again, what does that do to rates? I don't see
Yeah,
how
I
they
know.
go down. So the smart bond traders we have at Option Pit are like, I think, the Fed's just going to let the market work it out if Uncle Sam doesn't cut spending. And I think that's sort of, I don't know how long it takes, but that's kind of
Yeah.
where we are.
Doesn't seem
all
like
right.
it's anywhere in sight, quite honestly.
Yeah.
All right.
Sadly.
Now, speaking of quagmires that maybe don't have a clear solution, Boeing Corporation, could this stock be any worse? I know it got a bounce yesterday, but is this thing out of the woods? My take is I think there's still some downside risk on Boeing. Buy the bounce at your own risk. Now, eventually it'll be higher, but their quality control is so terrible right now. And faith and trust in their processes, the FCC and the FTA, they are up there. But, what's your take? I would, if I wanted to get into Boeing, I'd be selling a put at like 180. All right. That's kind of my take. If I want to go long Boeing, I'd buy the 180. I'd sell the 180 put.
Let me show you my chart real fast. That's a good one, Mark.
I like
All
that
right.
segue.
So Boeing, as we know, collapses, falls apart, gap. Here's the median line. A lot of times when a stock trades beyond a support or resistance level, it will come back and retest it. It'll kiss that level, and that's where you have the opportunity to go short, right? Look, we're down today. This does not look like it's going to be able to break through that resistance now. And look, my lowest rung there, Mark, is 186.
Well, there you go.
So the 180 put, and then you have here the previous low is 177.80. So
Okay.
180 is probably pretty safe. And look, you have earnings.
Yeah, those should be fun.
The 31st.
Yeah.
Yeah, Boeing was my pick for a bounce last week, but since it kept falling, I never placed a trade. It just, like I said, it can't. I'm not buying anything if it keeps going down.
Well, you can't catch a falling knife, right?
I thankfully avoided it. But
good.
And even now, it's like I I wouldn't buy. I think it's any kind of rally feels like it would be very slow at this point because historically it takes a while to bounce, which is why I thought a fly might be good last week, but there's no sense of the stocks, it's still going. I agree with Mark. It's
You
still
can wait.
it's kind of feeling like Wells Fargo, where it just did nothing for a year after, they got caught screwing everybody. So
Yeah.
it's one of those things where I think I'm in not a rush. Let's put it that way. It's now
they never recovered fully from the original Max disaster that they had.
No, because what was 380 that? It was 380, almost $400, something like that way back then.
Yeah.
When it was a cash machine. But.
Yeah.
Also, Andrew, watch that. My median line lines up pretty well with where the 200-day is, just above here.
Yeah.
The 200-day, that's going to provide resistance there also. So there's some pretty heavy resistance right there.
Yeah, that was a good trade not to do, thankfully.
Agreed. All right, now we'd be remiss if we didn't dig into the chips, because AMD and NVIDIA went parabolic over the last week. SMH is absolutely blowing higher. It's at, I think it's at an all-time high. Yeah, SMH is at an all-time high. AMD, is all-time high. Who'd have thunk it? But AMD is at a new all-time high, and NVIDIA looks like it's going to $600.
620.
620. I think that this is, it's really interesting. That Facebook announcement about buying all those chips and creating that big server space.
Right.
Pretty bullish for names like NVIDIA and AMD, and it's going to be an interesting ride while it lasts, right? My friend Jack Scoville, and I know other people have said this as well, but he used to say the solution to high prices is high prices. And these chips have incredibly high prices. And there will be other entrants into the market. It just doesn't work that way. But for now, like Leisha said, 620, and then see where it goes. But it's a freight train. Short this at your own peril, because it will crush you.
Oh yeah.
There are no top stocks. It's like, it reminds me, like, doesn't matter, because they expect revenue to double on chips. Still, like, how do they make that many chips? I didn't know you could I didn't know you could sell 100% more chips a year.
I think they're going to keep raising prices is the solution there, right?
Or
there's only how many people make them. There's not.
Well,
there's not
are
that
they
many.
are they using them in more and more products or things?
Yeah, there's been more and more demand for this kind of chip, which is why for now NVIDIA is really in a position to make a ton of money. But chips are not the same as phones. They're competing chips are somewhat interchangeable. There'll be slight preferences one over the other. When Intel and AMD fully enter this market, that is when I think that is going to be an interesting time to ask yourself how long you want to continue to hold this as an investment.
But not today.
No, not today. And then lastly, I want to talk Bitcoin. All right. Bitcoin, how many people out there were expecting Bitcoin to take off and explode higher when the ETFs listed? For those of you folks listening, how many of you thought that Bitcoin was going to continue to rally? I'm not saying blow off the top, but how many of you thought, Bitcoin will probably keep going from here? because there are if you are, you're not alone. I got a lot of calls and texts from neighbors and friends saying, Bitcoin to the moon. They're listed the ETF. This is big. And I know some of them are big crypto bulls. And so I just simply warned them. I go, just as an FYI, this could be a near-term top. Nothing to panic, but usually these events become some, there are players that sell, and that's what's happened so far. And I'm not fully sure that the selling is over. This week in our pit report, and if you're not a subscriber to the pit report, go to optionpit.com and click on that pit report and subscribe. We're actually breaking down Coinbase and talking about where we think that one could go. But what's your guys' take on general crypto as a whole, and where what's next for Bitcoin? And where does it find a floor here, and what do you do when it hits that floor? Alicia, what are you seeing?
Here's my chart on Bitcoin itself. It could not break back above that support level, which created new resistance. It traded down to the next rung of my Pitchfork perfectly. Now it's kind of stalled here. It's trying to decide. It could wallow through the weekend and not do much here. Then it would create some little spinning tops. Unless it gets a little bullish candle here, it could trade all the way down here, 38.5. But
$38,500.
As of now, it's holding the support. These tops here will have some support too. That comes in about, well, that's lower actually.
Those aren't very nice looking down candles, are they?
No, they aren't.
No, I mean,
and the volume, you can see too, the volume is stronger on the downside.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
the same thing happened when they listed the future. When they listed the future, Bitcoin peaked, and that was it. It was down from there. Never saw that level again. So now they've listed all the ETFs. Again, I think it's just more liquidity comes in, and there's less of a squeeze because it's a squeeze product. And I would guess personally, I think it just keeps kind of slowly fading back to where it was, but like in 10, 11,000, something like that. But
overall, though, long term, I think people still want it.
Yeah, people still want it. I still think this is bullish for Bitcoin in the long term, the ETFs, but short term, I'm with you. I think a move lower. And what's interesting is if you pull up some of the individual names in Bitcoin. So let's look at Marathon,
right, or something.
Let's look at Marathon.
Okay.
And I just want to look at the last 3 months. Marathon Patent Corp, they hold a lot of Bitcoin. It had this big sell-off, but what's been interesting is this red line down here, folks, is implied volatility. The implied volatility of Marathon Patent Corp went straight up. All right. The day after it topped and sold, implied volatility peaked. And in fact, the demand for options following this red line is actually falling as Marathon is falling, which is very curious and interesting. And what that, if you're wondering, what is that a signal of? People are not buying puts for protection. They're just selling the stock. They're just selling out of their long positions. That's why implied volatility falls as we drop. Is people had hedges on, they sell their puts, and then they sell their stock, and they're done. And so then that is where you see, that kind of price action. And is not. It shows a onset of apathy in the name, if that makes sense.
It does. I have no Bitcoin position at all, and I've never
Well, a
gotten
little
it.
bit.
I don't get it, but it makes people happy. So,
Well, if I wanted to be able to kind of speak to it and understand it, I had to do a little research and play around in it. So I own some Bitcoin, I own some ETH, and a couple other little things, but nothing crazy. It's not gonna, I'm not gonna be
not
buying a
going to
small
change your
country
life
with
currently.
my Bitcoin portfolio.
The hardest thing about Bitcoin, remember, Mark, when we had the students in the pro chat room that
Oh
were
yeah,
buying servers to mine it, they're like, "Wow, I just got another Bitcoin," and people will laugh, but I mean, they're like, "Wow, I spent all this money to get $150 Bitcoin." No kidding. This was what,
yeah,
2011 or something. Remember?
yeah. I
Um,
mean,
and they made a lot of
they
they made
did.
a ton of money. It was surprising. I guess that was the whole European meltdown and stuff. And after that, that's when Bitcoin went, 150, 300, 500,
Yeah,
1,000,
it was interesting.
started flying.
So with that, let's so yeah, there's our take. I think there's still a little downside on Bitcoin. Real quick, I wanted to throw out a trade I was kind of interested in, and actually, I want to actually talk to Leisha's idea. We're gonna skip mine because I am just looking at your idea, Leisha, and I want to spend a little time on it because I love it.
You
So,
like it?
yeah, so this is trades we like and why. I had one. It's okay, but I want to dig into Leisha's because it is. I'm a little excited about it. So, Leisha, take us through what you're bullish and why.
I am bullish Mosaic Company. The Mosaic Company. Here we have a really nice support level. It's tested. Now it's the third time it's testing it since June of 23. I think Mosaic's ready to bounce here. Has kind of a nice little hammer created the last couple days. I think it's ready to bounce back to 35.5.
That's been a good stock for us last year.
Yeah.
We've
I
done
mean,
that a
it's
couple times.
completely just collapsed here. It's ready for a
Yeah.
bounce. I think it could trade back up here to the 50-day. And
Leisha,
there's some cheap options to be had, Andrew.
Yeah. Do you think this has anything to do with like commodity prices getting smoked because people are worried about recession and they're not going to cut
No,
and all that? 'Cause
they're actually pricing themselves out. The fertilizer prices are so high that farmers are using secondary, less optimal stuff because they can't afford it unless they're the major corporations.
Gotcha.
That's what I've heard and been told.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that the ammonia stuff is so expensive right now.
Okay.
It's a real problem.
Should be good for profits, though. I mean, at least
You would think, except for they don't seem to be able to pass on the increases. Is their issue?
So what calls did you have Leisha picked before?
I like the
interrupted you?
February 2nd 32 calls.
Ah,
I also like this because they're cheap. They're right around $1. But you can use the support level as your stop loss. You have a nice tight stop loss. So if the stock closes below 31.5, you're out. You're not losing that much.
okay.
It's a nice high risk, low high
High risk, low
high
reward.
reward, low risk trade. Hello.
Yes.
Good
Our
morning.
favorite type of trade. It's the white panel vans of trades, is what you're telling me.
Yes, exactly. All right. Well, we're got a little more time than I thought. We can. I love your idea on Mosaic. I'm on board with that. I would, if even as a long term, I think we're kind of topping out on some of these ammonia prices and nitrates and everything that Mosaic does. I would look at some leap risk reversals in this. So I would look to sell like in MOS if I was gonna look to get into something. I might look at next year, sell the 27.5 put and buy the oh, these have like a weird strike on them. So we'll look at September, so it's a little easier to see. I'd look at like September. I can get probably about $1.15 for the 25 calls in September, or 25 puts. Sell those at 115, and then maybe I'd buy the 40 call for $1.50. Sell the 47.5 at 50 cents. Taking the whole thing for a 15-cent credit as kind of a long position. And that would be maybe a way I would go. That would be maybe the way I would get long. A name I think has found a little bit of a floor is Macy's. You know, it's looks like it looks like it has dojied. You got a little. I don't know if that's a doji or not, but I thought this sucker might be. You know, I was hoping you'd candleize it. We're starting to see an increase in call demand in Macy's. So this is one that I think could get a pop for the next few days and make a run back toward 20 where it was. We know they've got buyout offers out there.
Was there like a bit? Wasn't there somebody trying to take it over?
Yeah, no, there is somebody trying to take them over. So, I think there's plenty of upside there.
It's definitely sitting on support here.
I think I sold some 16 puts in that like a month ago or something.
You did.
I did.
Yeah.
We talked about it like in Delta.
We all did. You, me, the world.
It just closed the gap yesterday, and you have support there at the 50-day, right at 17. So yeah, I think that would be a nice.
Yeah.
See how you close the gap there. A lot of times you close the gap and continue in that same direction. So that makes sense higher, and you can use your 50-day as your stop loss.
I guess I could buy a call against my short put premium.
Yeah, I mean that's what I like. I'd be looking at buying the 19 calls in Feb for 55 cents. I think you can make some pretty good money on that. Really inexpensive play. Those are the February 16th, 2024. 19 calls for 55 cents. I think those will win. Speaking of winning, Andrew's got his giant, huge tractor trailer of option knowledge pulled up. It's carrying it's pulling a double wide full of knowledge and information and trade ideas. It's now time to take a ride in Andrew's trading vehicle.
All right, so I have 2 trading vehicle ideas. I'm going to go through my broken arm trade because it's expiring today, so it's done. Also, a lesson in, even though you might be trading for 30 years, you can still forget to put in a GTC should be a GTC, not a day order. Anyway, I'll just go over it real briefly. If you guys want to show my screen really fast, thanks. So anyway, we had, so basically I'm like, okay, I'm going to buy some ARM call spreads. I believe it was this day or maybe this day, Friday, it was a few weeks ago. I didn't fill them until the end of the day. And I believe they were the 79.85s for $1. So I filmed at the end of the day. And then the next day, we'd like totally fall apart. So what I did was I closed my short 85s and I bought a couple of the Jan 1969 puts. And this was about almost 3 weeks to expiration, right around there. And I made 236 for them and I ended up selling them at 3. They went as high as like 4. So I actually had to stop at 3 in case ARM started to go back up, because you can see it's pretty volatile. So what happened was I did get some money for these first set of puts, and I kept my 79 calls. And then boom, we had that huge rally again, and I dumped 4 out of the 5 calls for 75 cents. Now remember, I got into the spread for $1, but I did close some of the calls, so the spread price was I was closer to 125. Long story short, is 75 cents wasn't covering it, and only making like 70 cents a put or 65 cents a put wasn't covering it either. So I was basically long one call. And then all of a sudden, everything kind of started going south again. So I bought another 69 put. And I paid 178 only for those. It actually did go to $3. And if I would have got $3, it would have brought me back to a $90 loss on an entry price of about 625. So from a loss management point of view, I was doing okay. However, I thought my stop was a GTC and it was a daily, it was just a day order, and I ended up just getting out at 190. So I think I'm down 200 on the trade, even though my initial entry price was 500. So I saved some money, which is good. And I still have one of the 79 calls as a lotto ticket in case they never got above like 15 cents again, and that was it. So if you want to manage a trade, I have basically 3 ways to manage trades. You can have a stop loss, just kill the trade. You can manage the trade by changing your delta exposure of the trade, which is what I did here. And the reason why I did was because there was so much, the movement was huge. So I figured, okay, I'll buy a put, and those puts might just cover the cost of the whole trade, which they almost did. I was very, very close. If I would have been a little bit quicker catching this bottom, which of course, I think the puts I bought went to about $4. So it would have helped a lot. It would have got me halfway there. And then the last thing you do, so you have, or you just allocate a dollar amount, and that's it. So I personally don't like watching all my premium go to zero. So that's not my favorite way. Although some people do it like that. That's their thing. You just allocate dollars per trade. So I will try to manage the delta if something is moving with some velocity. And that's what I did in ARM. So instead of it costing me 500, it cost me $200. So again, it's a manageable loss for me in this particular account. So anyway, and that's buying at the top, and it wasn't a total disaster, but it's still a loss. Anyway, so that is that particular trade. So that was trying to fix your broken trade, which sometimes you got to do. The second is Taiwan Semiconductor. So Mark talked about semis. So I thought here, this is a good time to discuss when you would want a call versus a call calendar. Now, what I would say here is there is a little bit of latent vol in sort of the Jan 26. So here, there's just like the vol is probably a little bit more expensive than normal, especially with all the other semis coming around. So if I can work into a calendar trade where I could sell the front month and buy the back month and get kind of a vol credit, forward vol credit for the trade, that gives you a very, very low price calendar. And the cheaper the trade is, Alicia's very good at this in Option Shopper at Option Pit, but the lower the cost is, you get that little pop and boom, you're out. So I like trying to find low cost options that can blow up. So here in this case, do I buy a call or a call calendar? Now, if you're not familiar with a calendar, it is buying one term. So in this, and it might be hard to read this. I'll see if I could make this a little bigger. But my idea here is I'm buying the Feb 08 116 call and selling the Jan 24 116 call. It's about $3 out of the money. It's $1.03. Now the risk profile is here. So what you have is, okay, if we rally, you have like this gain potential, but it's a slow gain. When you buy a call, the gain is more parabolic. I mean, not parabolic, but just straight up, basically. So in this particular case, why would I choose a calendar over a call? And the reason is time decay, real simply. So my two choices here were and this is what I'm looking for this morning, Jan 26, Feb 09, 116 calendar for 109, or do I just buy the 116, calls, not calendars, calls, for $1.89. So my calendar is going to cost roughly half as much. So again, I like those $1 options that are relatively close to the money. It's only $3 out of the money for a 3-week hold, almost a 4-week hold. Relatively inexpensive, and that's because that Jan 26 is a little pumped, right? So buying the Feb 09 and selling the Jan 26, it gives me a little bit better, more of a head start on the trade. Now, I think the semis are going to keep rallying, but then once all the news is out, probably the rally is over. That's my guess. So TSM will probably just sort of ride the wave higher. So what I do is just look at your Greek profile. So the delta of just a calendar is 6.8 versus a straight call is 36. So it's much less aggressive of a trade if you think we're going to float, which is kind of what I think the stock is going to do because the earnings are out. Gamma here is negative. So basically that means when you get to the strike, you're at your max profit. And that's when I sell the trade, close the trade. Gamma here is positive with calls. So that means you just keep getting longer as you go up. Your theta here is positive. So if we kind of sit here for a little back and forth, waiting for January 31st Fed, I've got a positive decay profile. The call is decaying at $7 a day. So, every week, every 7 days, that's $49. So it gets pretty expensive if we don't move fast. Also, the volatility exposure of the call is roughly twice the calendar. So it's still long, a little vol, and at 27 is not really high for Taiwan Semi. But so in this case, again, if I'm choosing, which I am, I would take the call calendar over the calls because we did already have the spiky move. And I think just Taiwan Semiconductor just rides the semi wave higher. So if you look at a Greek profile, that will help you decide you want your Greek profile to match your outlook. And that is the easiest way to create a trade and pick a trade and put a trade on. Have your Greek profile match your outlook. If you don't know what the Greeks are, we can help you with that at Option Pit. That's basically all we do all day. And that is Andrew's
Trading vehicle. All right. Well, we've got a couple minutes. We've got about 2 minutes here. I wanted to hit real fast, kind of outgoing trade, my outgoing flow idea. Your hot take on it, up or down. Just give us a hot take. You folks give us a hot take. DraftKings. Yesterday, a trader sold to close. If you want to show my screen, sold to close the March 34 calls at 490. Sold over 15,500 of them. And then they took those dollars plus a little bit more. They took all their profit plus some of their initial debit and bought 19,000 of the DraftKings 38 calls. The stock is, of course, trading right now about 37.80. This trader looks like is betting on a move to 40. I think that it's time to say, say uncle to the DraftKings short and potentially go long and look for a new recent high. Leisha, hot take. DraftKings, higher or lower?
39.35. It's going. It looks like it's ready to test those previous highs there.
All right, 39.35. Andrew, hot take. DraftKings.
I think up because California is going to legalize gambling. So I think that's at least until the news actually hits. But I think it's up till then.
There you have it. All right. As we're closing up shop, futures have pulled back a little bit. We're up about 16 handles now. So pulling back a touch. Where do you think we go today, Andrew and Leisha?
I think that we really need to watch your 5-minute chart. We may, just pop right above these highs and then collapse. And if we don't, we're going to take off. So I think today it's going to be watch the 5-minute closely. Because I think either way, we're going to move higher or lower.
All right, Andrew.
I'm covering all my bases.
Yeah, you are. We're definitely going lower unless we go higher.
Unless we go higher.
No,
Again,
seriously though, I think that we could, just pull around with these highs. Just watch that 5-minute. We take off.
Rally and puke. So like a rally and puke would
it's
be
possible.
We've definitely seen that happen intraday over the last few days.
Yep.
Now it ends up getting bought, but They brought us red yesterday, real briefly. Andrew, what do you expect for the day?
I think we're going to go up a little bit. This news, I mean, I think the market wanted some relief, and the knuckleheads in Congress gave the market at least a little relief. So I think we'll still push. We'll end up higher on the day.
If the VIX doesn't get below its low from it doesn't break back below 13.5, doesn't make a serious run at like 13.25, I think you have to question whether the rally is going to last. This VIX positive correlation to the SPX, if you don't see
Sketchy.
some real selling and volatility, we could have some selling next week. All right, folks. Andrew, thanks for joining us every week, as you do every week. Leisha,
You're welcome.
I hope you have a great trading day. Any big plans this weekend?
I hope everyone has a great money-making trading day today.
Yeah.
I'm thinking I might go long IWM last minute here. Anyway, just thought I'd throw that out.
Ooh. There you have it.
Just for a couple points, about 2.5 points.
All right, short-term IWM long. I think this open is going to be interesting. What I will say is I'm going into the open long a couple of things, and I'm going to be pairing them off. I'm going to use this pop to pair off some longs. I will say that. Not sure if this rally holds. Very interested to see. All right, everybody. So for Andrew Giovinazzi, the Oracle of Options, and Leisha Leslie, the Queen of Candles, I am Mark Sebastian, your only option. Have a good one. This was Option Pit Live.